Great. Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you for having us all here today. So I'm Liz, and I'm a programme manager at Sound Connections, and NIMAS, as one of our partners, has asked us to support and host this discussion. So we've got some really fabulous organisations sharing all about their work with us this evening. For those of you who aren't familiar with Sound Connections, we're a sector support organisation, and we run training and development programmes, and we host Wired for Music, which is our flagship network for 16 to 25-year-olds, and we support organisations around the UK and further afield through things like youth voice and participation training and organisational development. And that is how I know all these three organisations here today. So at Sound Connections, we've explored and developed our youth voice work since at least 2010, when we set up Wired for Music. And as we've grown and learned things, we share them with the sector and champion this way of working through training, advocacy. And yeah, it's fantastic to hear about what we're going to hear about your brilliant youth voice work in all the different settings that you work in. So today we've got the National Open Youth Orchestra, we've got Live Music Now and Orchestras for All, who are going to be sharing about their work. The order of the session is that we're going to have 3 presentations, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. If you have got any burning questions after each presentation, please feel free to pop them in the chat, and if we have time, we'll take them then, and if not, I'll collate them and we will do them at the end of the session. And yeah, it would be really nice if people would be happy to put who they are, where they're from in the chat, so we know who is in the room. And I think I'll now pass over to Doug and Georgina.
Hello, hi everyone. Great to be here. I have shared my screen, so I hope you can see a slide with a blue background. Great, yeah, so my name is Doug Bott. I am the Artistic Director of the National Open Youth Orchestra. I'm a white middle-aged man with short brown hair. I've got a pair of blue glasses on and a grey jumper. And I'm here today with Georgina. So Georgina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Georgina and I play French horn in the Birmingham Centre of Noyo. I'm 23 years old. I'm a white female with shoulder length brown hair and I'm wearing a dark blue jumper. Our Noyo Youth Voice case study will cover what the National Open Youth Orchestra is, how the musicians shape the music we perform, how musicians co-own the voice of Noyo, and also tips on making youth voice work.
Okay, so a bit of quick background about the National Open Youth Orchestra. We're currently working with 37 musicians ranging in age from 11 to 25 years old. It's a mixture of musicians who identify as disabled and others who are non-disabled. They have a range of communication and access needs. And these musicians come together to rehearse at 4 National Open Youth Orchestra centres in London, Bristol, Birmingham and Bournemouth, with a 5th opening in Cardiff from September 2023. So musicians are involved in a mixture of rehearsals, residentials and concerts each year. And the orchestra crucially is delivered in partnership with a range of different organisations around the country. Their logos are on the screen there. It includes Barbican, Guildhall School, Bristol Beacon, Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra, B Music, Midlands Arts Centre, Services for Education, the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama and BBC National Orchestra of Wales. Okay, a little bit of music to kick things off. We are going to see and hear a very short extract of a piece that National Open Youth Orchestra musicians recorded in, when was it, 2020, I think, or was it 2021? I'm so confused about what happened in what year. Anyway, it's a piece called What Fear We Then that we commissioned from the wonderful composer Alexander Kampkin. Here it is. I hope you can hear it. Give me a shout if you can't. There we go. Well, if that's whetted your appetite, the full version is available to view on our website, on YouTube. So please do go and enjoy the rest of that.
Shaping the music. So this is about how we know-yo musicians have a say in the music that we play. Creativity is one of the core values, and we engage audiences and perform exciting music. We play pieces that are specially commissioned for us and for our instruments. We're a diverse group of musicians who play a wide variety of instruments, including acoustic, electronic, traditional, adaptive, and bespoke accessible instruments. Some traditional musical instruments haven't changed for centuries, and many disabled people with physical disabilities struggle to play them. Adaptive and bespoke accessible instruments harness cutting-edge technology to create instruments that disabled people can play.
So other ways in which musicians shape our music is through the commissioning of the pieces of music that we play. So we have a three-stage process for commissioning new music for the National Open Youth Orchestra. And it runs, roughly speaking, across a 3-year cycle. So in the first year, musicians are involved in choosing a theme or topic, which composers can write music about. In the following year, we commission 2 composers each year to write short concept pieces or musical sketches, which musicians can then workshop and experiment with, and then express an opinion on, because they then get to vote on which of these concept pieces we take forward to a full commission, which is then created, rehearsed, and performed in the 3rd year. So yeah, a 3-year cycle, but each process is running concurrently. So this year, we will be asking musicians to choose a theme for next year. We're also workshopping the piece of music for which a theme was chosen last year. And we're also getting ready to perform the piece of music for which the theme was chosen 2 years ago, which was workshopped last year, and we're performing it this way. I hope that's not too confusing. Okay, the other way in which musicians are involved in shaping our music is that every year there's an opportunity for all National Open Youth Orchestra musicians to propose a piece which they would like the orchestra to play. And then they get to vote on which is the winning piece. And the music which we are rehearsing this year is from the film The Good, the Bad and the Ugly by Ennio Morricone, which was proposed last year by Connor, a cellist in the orchestra.
Culture, the ways in which young people shape the music at No-Yo. In No-Yo, musicians have space to be themselves, and we can take time out if we need it, and we know where there will be a quiet space for us. We're sent a plan of the rehearsal about 2 weeks before the rehearsal, and this helps us to prepare what we need. The music leaders are organised and there's no last minute changes. The room is set up in the same way each time. And if the room is going to change, we know in advance and we're sent photos of it so we know what to expect. When I played in other ensembles, I used to worry about spending the breaks on my own. But at Noyo, we know what time the break will be held, and the Noyo staff help us to socialise with each other. During the rehearsals, the music leaders give us lots of opportunities to inform and shape the music. And Noyo musicians can suggest where dynamics should be placed and what the dynamic should be. And we can also try new articulation, tempo, and sometimes even changing the key of the piece. And co-owning the voice of Noyo. So me being here today and presenting alongside Doug proves that Noyo musicians have a big say in everything Noyo. In our 2022 concerts, Noyo musicians introduced each piece in their own words. And when we launched the What Fear We Then music video online, the Zoom launch event was co-hosted by two Noyo musicians, Jamie and Holly. Noyo musicians talk about Noyo at conferences and do interviews and write-ups for articles and blogs. So Noyo musicians also have input in areas you might not have thought about. For example, creating the logos, everyone has their own. So musicians who aren't verbal can also be represented in how we project ourselves. And the one shown is Ali's, who's a clarion player in the London Centre. Focus groups. I took part in a focus group to come up with the words that define the values of Open Up Music, which is the charity behind Noyo. And musicians like Holly and Torrin really pushed for Instagram, but now they're part of the social media team, and they have phones that musicians from each Noyo centre can use, and a monthly catch-up over Zoom.
Yeah, the social media team and Instagram is a really interesting case in point. So our Instagram channel is completely co-owned with Noyo musicians. Sounds like a great idea. It is a great idea, not straightforward. We took a great deal of time and care in setting up our Instagram channel. Clearly, there are massive safeguarding considerations around that. It's also a question of resourcing. There's a great risk in youth voice work of over-promising. We wanted to make sure that before we actually set this Instagram channel up, we could resource it properly, and we have a dedicated member of staff who has time each week to work with Noyo musicians in running the channel and supporting them. Also on the slide is something called the Noyo Awards. Evaluation is, of course, also a youth voice activity in any form, so long as young people are consulted. But it needs to be creative to be interesting. It's not just a question of filling out surveys, questionnaires, all that kind of stuff. So we have in the past run evaluation activities with musicians in the format of an awards ceremony, which hopefully is a lot more fun than a standard evaluation activity, but gives us lots of really useful and interesting information that we can learn and reflect on.
So Noyo's helped me significantly with many things, including my confidence, independence, and resilience. I've had a lot of opportunities through Noyo, like presenting a 2-hour radio program on Scala Radio, talking about being a disabled musician as part of the Sunday Night Scala in the Youth Orchestra series. Doing articles for the ABRSM website and the Barbican brochure. Noyo gave me the opportunity to be part of Youth Music's Reshape Music report, which explored the lived experience of disabled musicians in education and beyond. which led to 2 conferences. One was online in America and the other in my home county of Lincolnshire. Noyo gave me the confidence to join the National Autistic Society as a young ambassador. I started working for a charity that offers respite care to disabled children and their families because of the experience that Noyo gave me. And now I'm working as a co-researcher alongside Open Up Music as they develop an accessible musical progression toolkit, firstly for Noyo partners, then nationally and maybe even internationally. Noyo's pastoral team have helped me a lot through the targets that we set together alongside the musical director. Noyo has allowed this progress to happen.
Okay, so finally, a few tips that we thought of to make Youth Voice work in practice. I'm sure this is not an exhaustive list. We're all just doing our best with the information that we've got at this point in time, but here are our kind of top tips at the moment. So the first top tip to make Youth Voice work is commitment. And what we mean by that is that the whole organisation must buy in. That includes all staff and trustees. And of course, that might require training. Put it in staff job descriptions. Make sure it's in there. It's part of your appraisals process for staff, so that it's really core to what each staff member needs to be doing as part of their job. Plan ahead, think carefully, don't rush into things. Be clear about roles and responsibilities. Crucially, don't overpromise to young people before you've really thought it through. It's really important to avoid ever putting young people in situations where they risk being overextended, stressed, or vulnerable. Ensure enough time for young people to process and understand things. Respect musicians' voices and interests. Sounds obvious. I'm sure we all assume we do that, right? But consider the fact that young people's political or religious views may not chime with yours. And that if we're serious about Youth Voice and respecting musicians' voices and interests, that means respecting viewpoints that you may not share. So you've got to think about that quite carefully. Avoid putting words in young people's mouths. So that means carefully matching each opportunity to different musicians' interests and strengths. Invite multiple creative formats, different ways of participating to be able to involve a wide range of young people. Clearly use accessible language and formats, and where possible, make it fun.
Thank you for your time today, and if you'd like to, please follow us.
Great, we're done. Thanks very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Doug and Georgina. That was, brilliant to hear about all the different things that you do, from how you have Youth Voice in the music making, so through your 3-year process, but then also how you've incorporated that into the programming and then into your social media team, which is really interesting because I'm pretty sure I remember having a chat with Julia a couple of years ago at Youth Voice Week that we were holding about what might that look like for Noyo. And, fantastic point that you made about don't rush, take your time, don't overpromise. And actually, it's obviously working really well because you've really thought about it. And about the evaluation. So actually including young people's voices in all sorts of different areas. And I just wanted to pick up on what you said about not overpromising. I was having a discussion yesterday about Youth Voice with lots of different people, and we were talking about the idea of overpromising, and is it a safeguarding thing, because, you know, we think about safeguarding in terms of dangerous things and disclosures that we might hear, but actually we've got a responsibility to safeguard the young people that we work with, their hopes and feelings and all of that type of thing. So yeah, really lovely to hear that. We've just got one question in the chat, which I think we can take now, if that's okay, Doug. So Sarah has said she'd love to know about the approach taken in the Know-Yo Awards evaluation event. What did you do?
Great question. But I have to be honest that on that occasion, I wasn't there because I was on holiday. I mean, probably what would be best is to ask Julia, our comms manager, to just do a quick write-up of that and send it over. But yeah, from my understanding, it was a bit like an awards night where there were loads of different categories and people got to vote for, you know, who was your favorite music leader, who was, you know, who did really well at this, who was interesting at that, and all kinds of different areas of our work were covered. And the whole thing was very cleverly and artfully linked in to our outcomes and all of the outcome indicators that we use to report against. So yeah, if I don't know if anybody else who might be on the call, because I know there's some other Know-Yo people here on the call, was actually there and can share everything, because my answer is a bit of a cop-out. Apologies for that.
No, I think that's like great to hear a little bit more about it, Doug, and yeah, we'll follow up with yourselves, and then maybe we can share that round with you, Sarah. Or Julia, do you want to share? I wasn't sure whether you wanted to or not.
Yeah, I can share a little bit, and Georgina went there too. But the whole idea, I think, is that it was a mix of, you know, when you ask young people about their progress, for example, it's quite hard to talk about yourself. But if you ask to talk about your fellow musicians, oh, who do you think has done the best this year? You know, that becomes just more interesting in a way. And then you can think about yourself. Oh, what are you proud of, you know, this year? But it was also mixed with some creative exercises. For example, you know, if you could describe your year with Know-Yo in a song, what would be the title? If it was a poem, what would it be? Or if you wanted to take a picture or do a collage, you know, you could share. Basically, we gave them a mix of questions which were voting, which means that people who aren't, you know, verbal can actually really participate. So voting, communicating in whatever form they wanted creatively, and also a more traditional question, but wrapped into an award style, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, very clever. Thank you very much, Julia. Great. Okay, well, I think we can move on now, but thank you so much to Doug and Georgina and for Julia for adding in there as well. So next up, we've got Karen from Live Music Now.
Thanks very much, Liz, and thanks very much, Doug and Georgina. That was absolutely brilliant. Really interesting to hear about your work. So hello, everybody. My name's Karen. I'm from Live Music Now. I'm a middle-aged white woman wearing a blue jumper, and I have shoulder-length fair hair. Live Music Now is a national charity delivering social impact through music. And we employ and train over 200 professional musicians each year to deliver participatory music sessions for children and adults experiencing disabling barriers. So our work takes place in schools, hospitals, care homes and community settings. But today I'm going to focus on our work with disabled children and young people accessing specialist school provision. So first of all, I'll tell you a little bit about our work in schools and then about the training programme that we do for our musicians with a focus around youth voice and a particular focus on the work we do with children and young people with profound and multiple learning disabilities. So the next slide, Liz, please. Thank you. So annually we work with around 180 special schools in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. About a third of that work is participatory concerts. So our musicians visit schools to perform bespoke concerts. They're very participatory, generally very good fun and a lovely shared experience for all the young people. And during the pandemic, we also started doing online concerts, which have been very successful too, working with music education hubs. Next slide. And then the rest of our work is project-based. We provide opportunities for young people to develop their music making skills, often by exploring instruments and voices, improvising, creating and performing their own music. Partnership work with the classroom staff is absolutely central to this, and we often have an element of CPD built in as well. And the next slide. And more recently, we've started doing some research to support our work in special schools. So for example, we've just recently completed a pilot project with a school in Bath, working with Professor Adam Ockleford. And the project's called Count Me In. And it's nice to see Bea on the call as she was involved in the pilot work. And the idea is that we're exploring a new approach to group music making and making it very accessible and inclusive, particularly for young people with profound and multiple learning difficulties. And it involves assessing where young people are at in their musical development, and we use the Sounds of Intent framework for that. We have 4 levels that we look at. So there's young people could be sound makers, or pattern makers, or motif makers, or song makers. And then we take a piece of music and deconstruct it into those 4 levels, and then create individual resources for the students at the appropriate level. So when they're taking part in the group music making, it's very meaningful to them. The next slide, thanks. That's just an example of some of the resources that we've been created in the pilot project. And the next slide. So more generally, we've been thinking about how we foster and embed youth voice across all our work, including the training for our musicians. And as part of that process, we were really lucky to work with the Media Trust. They made a film featuring the voices of young people that we've been working with at Village School in Brent. And they're talking about what music means to them. So enjoy this short film.
If I'm having a bad day, I listen to music to help me happy, relaxed.
Don't worry, Sai, you're gonna be legendary.
Thank you.
Rock music makes me jam out. It pumps me up.
Music is very relatable. If you're happy, it's great. If you're sad, you can relate to the lyrics a bit more.
You're in different world with the music. You don't feel alone.
Hello, hello, princess. Hello, hello, princess.
I think every workshop should feel fun, it should feel playful, it should feel imaginative. Who was it who said last time they like Whitney Houston?
Hello, hello, hello.
Obviously you come in with a plan, but that plan is always going to be flexible, and you really have to get a sense of what are the children bringing into the room. So it's that kind of explosion of ideas together which makes the workshop.
It's all about sort of how you create that safe environment for the students and how you can let them know that it is a safe environment for them to express themselves. You can tell straight away with how their faces lighten up, they tap into the beat, with their body language.
It's great. I really enjoy how we work as a team, and everybody played a different instrument and made a rhythm and made a noise.
Well, I want to learn guitar. I just started playing a guitar today in the session we had. Yeah, I liked it.
What I like best about it, the fact that we did a lot of instruments and definitely piano.
Music is what brings people together, and it's kind of boring if you don't have music.
It's just relax and cheer you up, and when you are bored and when you think you want to dance, your body starts to stand.
How do they make me feel? It's just by it makes me feel good about myself in any way, shape, or form.
So all the musicians who deliver the work in special schools, they take part in our Inspire training programme. We developed it over several years of working in partnership with schools, and the starting point was, what skills and knowledge do visiting musicians need to have to deliver really engaging and relevant music sessions that are high quality. And obviously this includes thinking about youth voice. The next slide. So we do have a framework that underpins the training. I just put it up there as a flash to show you that we have thought about it in depth, but I'm not going to go into it at the minute. But one thing that we do at the start is we do introduce our musicians to the Sounds of Intent development framework so that they have knowledge around how children and young people develop musically. So the next slide. So our Inspire programme, it has 3 different levels for the musicians, and the entire programme is supported by a set of fantastic mentors who guide and train the musicians as they're learning. I'll tell you very briefly about the 3 levels. So in level 1, the musicians take part in a 3-day residency in a school led by an experienced mentor. And for many of our musicians, it's their first time in a special school classroom. And one of the first things they learn is about taking time to wait for responses and discussing what those responses might mean. And the next slide. Then at level 2, the musicians plan and lead a 7-week creative music project with support from a mentor. And at this level, they're learning very much about structuring and pacing sessions. And then level 3, the next slide, the musicians spend a full year embedded in a school as a musician in residence, again with support from a mentor, and they work really closely with school staff and support children's musical progression across the year. The next slide. So as you can tell, we've thought very carefully about the musicians training, but we realised that we could have more focus on youth voice, and it could be sort of more clearly articulated in our training, particularly around our work with PMLD learners. So we commissioned Liz's colleagues at Sound Connections to work with us on that, to create a report for us, and that included thinking about how to bring out the voices of children and young people, reflecting the range of communication methods used by participants, both verbal and non-verbal, and being adaptable for a range of environments. Actually, Sound Connections have been working with us on our 4-year programme, funded by Paul Hamlin Foundation, of sort of year-long residencies in special schools. So the Sound Connections team interviewed 14 people, including head teachers, academics, colleagues from music organisations, LMN mentors and musicians, and they also did desktop research, and from that they produced a set of recommendations for best practice around, for our musicians when they're planning sessions, when they're in sessions, delivering activities, and also at the end of sessions. Next slide. So some of the things that they pulled out, sort of overarching considerations for our musicians. I'll pick out a couple of these, but so Sounds of Intent, which is a really important tool within our organisation. One of the interviewees had said, he said, there's a massive danger to view the lives of children with profound and multiple learning difficulties through our own lives and understanding of music. It's very difficult to step back from that and to understand the experience of that child. And that is the whole point of signs of intent. So basically, we see signs of intent as being essential for capturing the progress of learners with PMLD. And the point to emphasize is that if they are making progress, then that shows that there's successful pupil engagement during sessions. That's something for the musicians to hold on to. Thinking about child person-centered activity, that's a really crucial skill for our musicians to master, and it can be quite challenging, having the confidence and skills to put the appropriate scaffolding in place so that the activity is child-led, and we're finding that that very much comes with experience. And as sort of linked to that, it's really important for musicians to understand the relationship between them taking that child-centered approach and the child's mental well-being, sort of linking into the sort of right of freedom of expression, thinking about human flourishing, and the right to experience an enriched life without any pressure of assessment. And the next slide, Liz. So just picking out some of the findings from the Sound Connections interviews and research. So you can see that there were findings around thinking about when you're planning sessions, and then when you're delivering sessions, and then at the end of sessions. I just wanted to highlight a few things about during sessions, things that our musicians need to think about. One of the things was being in the moment. And that's sort of like one of the best ways to find out what pupils are thinking and feeling. The musicians are aware of every second and focusing on music as a means of communication, then it means it's possible to really hear and tune in. And also thinking about being a sensory listener, I was interested, when they pulled out that term, and it really means listening out for any changes such as emotions, feelings, movements and facial expressions during interactions with young people. Also thinking about empathy and then tuning in. So musicians thinking about things from a different perspective and then tuning in and being very reactive to the person that they're working with. One of the interviewees said that musicians should have professional empathy as part of their practice. And then finally, just thinking about observation, the fact that musicians need to be listening and watching students in their sessions, getting to know their preferences, their reactions, and understanding those nuances of communication so that they can start to form relationships. And on to the next slide, please. We also sort of pulled together some tools and ideas for capturing feedback, particularly from pre-verbal children. And that includes maybe, liaising with school staff around augmentative and alternative communication, such as the PECs and talking mat or core boards. Also making notes and feedback, using video, using photography, and very much, discussing notes and feedback with your peers and with staff as well. And the next slide. Now we're sort of looking at ways of how to implement the ideas in the report into our training. And Ros Hawley, who's our lead trainer for the Inspire programme, she came up with some areas for musicians to think about. So we're going to put it in as a sort of checklist as part of their reflective practice. So it's getting the musicians to think about, am I allowing space for young people to communicate, for their expression, for their musical skill development, for their identity, for personal growth, and for well-being. So we thought that I think that's quite a nice set of things to be thinking about. And the next slide. Also some prompts that we're going to be sharing with the musicians and their mentors when they're reflecting about their sessions, thinking about where's the pupil's voice in my session? Am I responding to pupils' ideas and interests? And how can I get feedback from pupils? The quote that I put in on this slide came from one of our musicians working in a Liverpool school. And she said that early on, I was wondering how to engage with everyone in the class. But now the question is, how does this child want to engage with me? So, our musicians do go on quite a steep learning process during their residency year in school, but I thought that was a really nice way of putting it. And on to the next one. Thanks. So, working on the report with Sound Connections, it really reminded me that youth voice has to be woven across all aspects of projects, in the planning, in the delivery, and in reflection and evaluation. And we're also taking the learning from this work into the other strands of our work in adult social care as well. And just a few tips to end with. For us, using the sounds of intent gives a really good framework. There's a super new website. If you haven't seen it, if you're not familiar with it, I really encourage you to explore it. And there's also a new student accreditation scheme that's been launched by Trinity College as well. Being in the moment, for our musicians to be sort of clearing their minds so that they're 100% focused on the young people that they're working with, and being very proactive as an observer, looking out for responses. And so then making sure that they're liaising with the staff that know the children best so that they can interpret responses, and making notes and discussing those with classroom staff. And then having access to those other sort of methods and tools to find out more from pupils. So thank you very much. That's me finished. And if you'd like to keep in contact, I'll stick my email address in the Zoom chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. That was really interesting. Yeah, great to hear about all the different things. Obviously, well, not obviously, I wasn't part of doing that evaluation, so really good to hear more about it. And yeah, really, I'm really interested actually in what's come through both of yours, and we'll see whether it does in Ellie's as well. Just a thread around the tutors and the musicians that you're working with as being really key to this way of working as well, and actually what are the tools that they have to deliver this way of working, what a challenge it might be to them, because it's very much all around the whole person, isn't it? It's not just the musical part of it, but working with the whole child, which is really good. And a couple of similar things from what Doug said as well around being very prepared and being in the moment and all of that type of thing, being very respectful of the different needs that are in the space. Does anyone have any burning questions for Karen right now, or we can go to that a bit later? No, I think, well, you're just so thorough, Karen, you've covered everything. So thank you so much for that. So now we're going to move on to Orchestras for All, led by Ellie, with Kate and Joe.
Are we good?
It's just loaded. There we go. Yeah, great.
Good. Okay. Kate, do you want to go first? Ladies first.
Yeah, totally. So I shall give you a visual representation of what I look like. So I have curly brown hair because I haven't got my roots done in a while. I'm wearing a lot of green. I have pretty wild eyebrows, and I am very, very small. So if that helps you guys visualize me better, happy days.
I am Joe. I'm got red hair. I'm sort of a very young white boy, I guess. Yeah, that's to apply to it. And I'm wearing a pink Orchestras for All t-shirt.
Perfect. So, hi and welcome to Orchestras for All. So my name's Kate and I am from Belfast in Ireland.
And I'm Joe and I'm from London.
So we're here to talk to you guys today about how Orchestras for All is genuinely like one of the truly inclusive musical education organizations through all the programs that they do, which Joe is going to fill you in on now.
Yeah. So me and Kate have both been members for many, many years now, and we have graduated, so to speak, onto staff. So we're properly placed within the organisation to feed back on youth, on the issues that young people face and how we can empower those young people within our organisation. It gives us a unique perspective on the barriers, and it also tells us, it also gives the core staff, Ellie and her team, a better way forward for the young people and for the staff.
Definitely. So we go to the next slide for me, please. Cool. We really focus on the idea of meeting young people where they're at, whether that's because they're physically disabled, whether they have extra educational needs, or whether they're just somebody who needs a little bit of more of a confidence boost. We love to meet young people where they're at. So Joe, would you go on and explain how we meet young people where they're at through our programs?
First of all, I'll explain how we incorporate youth voice into our organisation. So across our organisation, we have established a youth board, which is a sort of a very large collection of some of our young people who make decisions for the organisation. So they spearheaded our rebrand, which allowed them to take ownership of it, and that's something that's really important to our organisation. They have also taken ownership of the music. So the next season of the National Orchestra for All is going to be something they have decided. I'm not sure what it is, I'm not on the youth board, but I'm sure Kate does. But the programs that we run are threefold. So first of all, we have the National Orchestra for All. It is a collection of 100 young people who need to meet a certain set of requirements for eligibility, such as coming from a disadvantaged background. And they come together 5 times over 2 years now, and we make music and we train them up to be proud young musicians when they might not otherwise get the chance. But we don't just stop there. We're straight through the doors of the school with the modular program, which schools can enroll on. It gives the school resources, and it also provides opportunities for the young people to come together in a similar setting to the National Orchestra for All and play in smaller ensembles, but we also give the support to schools to make their own ensembles. It really does make the young people feel empowered and able to take ownership of it, because they're almost all in control all of the time. And the third and final one is the Music Leadership Program. So this is our staff training program to become successful ensemble leaders, because there's so much untapped potential in so many children, but you need the training that you need in order to bring that out of them. And we believe that to train the staff is as important as to educate the children. I think, Kate, you're taking over now.
Yep, so if we move on to our next slide, I'm going to talk a little about opportunities and accessibility. So we provide a variety of young people with a variety of needs who have restricted access to music, and involve them in organisational decision making. As Joe was saying, yes, I am one of the members on the youth board. They have decided our theme for this year, they have decided the music, they have decided they wanted a mascot, and these young people are genuinely true leaders. Our orchestra really looks up to them, and they're a pleasure to work with. In regards to accessibility and giving young people opportunities, a lot of people are quick to say that young people, they're all the same. They don't care, they just want to go out and do what they want to do. Not these young people. If you give young people the opportunity to be involved and to take ownership over what they're being a part of and what they want to create, then you will see the change in them. We give young people a chance by proving that your accessibility needs are not an afterthought for us. Every program that we run, whether it's a one day get together, or whether it's a 4-day course, which by the end of it we are exhausted, it is not an afterthought. Inclusivity and accessibility is inbuilt into every program that we have, through just generally going through a lot of training in regards to neurodivergence and physical disabilities, and how we can make sure that before those young people step through the door, that if someone does come with that need, we actually don't have to modify the session because we've already thought with that in mind. So if we move on to the next slide, for me, one of the accessibility issues is where I'm from. So I am from Belfast. So NOFA is great because, you know, location can be a massive impediment for people. You know, what if you're out in the countryside? What if you're in a really rural area with no opportunities? It's just you, which is very likely if you're from Ireland. Anybody who's ever been, it's a lot of green space. So in regards to geography, those people who, you know, we choose to work with, we actually make sure to support them with their travel, whether it be plane like myself, bus, train. Orchestras for All make sure that they will cover your travel and that they will help you navigate whatever, you know, system that you're going through. So for me, the train is a nightmare, and I'm so glad that I can have Orchestras for All on speed dial to guide me through that. As well as they help sustain musical education through breaking down these barriers as well, especially on Zoom. For example, we were one of the only orchestras who fully went online and functioned through Zoom during the pandemic, which we're very proud of. So geography and location are no bounds to us. So Joe is going to go on to the next slide and speak a little about how we think about talent in our organisation.
Yeah, so we don't require talent to as a sort of an eligibility requirement in any of our programs. You could be any level of musical ability, and the team at Orchestras for All will strive to meet you where you currently are. And that does two things. First of all, it boosts the confidence of the young people, because if they know that they have somebody supporting them, as well as the person who's supporting the grade 8 musician 3 chairs down, it really shows that we are committed to each of our young people, and it gives the connection point, which is so useful because so many young people end up with a lack of confidence and a lack of ability because the education required to train them is a lot more than one who's been previously educated. It also means that we can work with those young people as well. So we go through the training of we go through that training to know how to educate those musicians, how to help those young musicians, how to boost their confidence, how to boost their talent. I myself jumped 3 grades in my first year in my first 4 days at Orchestras for All. So I can tell you that they truly do care. But I was just barely picking up the clarinet.
Exactly. So our next slide that we're going to go to, that again Joe is going to speak about, is how we take ownership within our artistic approach and music at Orchestras for All.
Yeah, so I've already mentioned the Youth Board, which make decisions on certain aspects of the organisation, but that doesn't end there. So we workshop our pieces as well. The young people have, over lockdown, submitted tons of little snippets of music, which we've collated together and created a new piece. We call it the Great Interstellar Orchestra. It's really great. It's on YouTube. Please give it a listen if you can. But we also don't just go in the top-down sort of teacher-led, adult-led music-making experience. We truly get the young people involved. They're making the music. The audience help make the music at times. So, and we also work with other professionals such as spoken word artists. You can see one of them on the screen. We've worked with all kinds of people to create just the best experience, the most holistic experience we can for the young people, so that they know they are truly involved in the music making process.
Perfect. So the next slide is kind of us talking about resources. So for example, on an away day that I was at last year with Orchestras for All, we were talking about how we as an organisation could be more sustainable. So we actually encourage people to donate instruments, stands, anything that they have. So we really encourage the recycling of instruments, which is great for the planet. We also help give people the resources because, you know, it's all well and good to go into school and, you know, do all this great music work, get them involved, get them all fired up, but then leave them with nothing at the end. Orchestras for All do not do that. Orchestras for All make sure to leave their modulo programs in schools with resources and confidence, and also helping the confidence of the teacher to actually deliver those sessions at the same time. Because sometimes, even if a teacher is trained in music, sometimes it can be a bit intimidating and a bit overwhelming to facilitate such a massive concept of an orchestra where people are maybe only picking up that instrument, or maybe only learning that piece of music, or maybe only learn how to read music in general. As I've mentioned previously, our Zoom courses online give amazing resources. For example, we were able to use the functions of Zoom. Yes, we all got sick of Zoom after a while, but we were able to use the functions to help young people communicate their emotions, what they were feeling. We were able to compose our own piece of music as well, which is something that a lot of orchestras cannot say that they do. Even in physical courses, one of our late composers is on the screen that we did a really great cultural piece with. So because Orchestras for All want their young people so badly to be part of the process and part of just musical artists, like being a musical artist, that they help give those young people resources, especially within music leadership as well. You know, we do music leadership programs, but also during courses, we encourage young people to get up and stand where our lovely conductor Emma is standing, to actually conduct in front of the whole orchestra. And if you've never watched a young person conduct a full orchestra, you are missing out. So the next slide, I am going to go on a bit about myself, which I love to do. I love attention. Joe will tell you that for free. I love attention. So my name is Kate, and I come from Belfast in the good old land of Ireland. So yeah, I play the trumpet as well as a few other instruments, but trumpet was my first love. And I think for me personally, it's okay to recognize barriers, but how do you break them? We're so good at pointing out, you know, all the things and all the reasons why we're being failed, rather than how we can overcome it. So I can truly say that I wouldn't be who I am without Orchestras for All today. So I came on my 16th birthday. I remember everyone playing happy birthday to me. I was like, oh my goodness, all these weirdos are playing happy birthday to me. I am absolutely scundered, which means embarrassed. So I come from a really divided society up in North Belfast. If anybody knows any Irish history, there is a lot of contention between two different communities in Ireland, especially in Belfast. So whenever I had the opportunity to come to Orchestras for All, I was terrified, because I was always taught that English people were meant to be my enemy. And I was taught that an English person would never want to be my friend or speak to me because of who I was, and that I should feel the same way. And I'm so glad that Orchestras for All changed that, because I mean, Joe's a great friend and he's English. Do you know what I mean? Like, I am so glad that Orchestras for All changed that perspective, because it was the first time someone heard my story outside my small community in Belfast, and it gave me a chance to educate people. So I'd always be involved in youth projects since I was 11, and yeah, there's a lot of cross community work, but at the same time, you have to be so careful what you say, because you don't know who's going to be in that room. However, whenever I came to Orchestras for All, people accepted me at face value and wanted to hear my story, and all of it, the unfiltered version. And I was like, whoa, okay, this is crazy. Someone wants to hear what I have to say and where I come from. So because OFA gave me this chance to blossom and come out of my shell and to stop being so afraid of the person that I was able to, you know, get the confidence to become an ambassador for Orchestras for All, which is brilliant. I was able to gain the confidence to go into big band. Isn't my conductor so cool looking? He is so cool. I was a young person who thought I couldn't do anything until someone strived to meet me where I was at, and that was Orchestras for All. And they told me that I could do anything because they gave a young person a chance. Because of Orchestras for All, I'm now a qualified youth worker, a youth practitioner in Belfast. I'm currently in my office at Pure Mental, and I'm currently studying English and politics at university, because yeah, people can say on the surface level, it's just music. You're just sitting in an orchestra, but it is so much more than that. They're giving me tools. They've given me tools to communicate, to have self-confidence, and to be more self-assured within myself. So whenever you're thinking about Orchestras for All, please take a slice of my story. So we're going to go on and hear a little bit about Joe's journey with Orchestras for All, who's basically born in Orchestras for All.
I wouldn't say born, but I certainly joined a lot earlier than you. Back in 2015, a rather green-nosed year 8. I was extremely shy, extremely lacked confidence, musically and personally. But then I met the wonderful people at Orchestras for All, and I've never looked back. They gave me so much. They have enabled me to flourish. They grow my confidence. Because I've been a young leader and an ambassador, I've had the chance to lead sessions. I've had the chance to plan things, some things that young people really don't get. And those experiences gave me the ability to say that the communicator that I hope I am now. I also know that musically, as I said, I jumped 3 grades in my first 4 days, or rather 3 grades in terms of like technical ability. I didn't actually pass my 3rd grade exam, but I know that probably wouldn't have happened for a long time, if ever, had I not had somebody willing to hear me, see me where I was, and help me. And that's an ethos that I'm so proud to say is still at the heart of everything we do. And we are always talking to the young people. We are always getting their opinions. We are always engaging with them. And we did it over lockdown, which meant that we kept our numbers high, and we're still doing it now out of lockdown, which is amazing. We've flourished really well. And I'm really proud to say that I'm a member of staff at Orchestras for All. And we need that to be the rule for young people, not the exception. We need young people to come out of organizations and motions and say that this has really helped me, because so many places don't, they help you, but not in the way that you need, in ways that they think you need. And so by listening to the young people, by talking to the young people, you learn a lot about what they can do. And I'm not as much of a blabberer as Kate, so I'm just going to cut it quite here and say thank you very much for listening to me and Kate. It has been a pleasure to talk to you. And I'm going to hand over to the wonderful Ellie in a moment, because I think Kate has something to say. But yes.
Yeah, so I am a bit of a blabber, but I would say that's because we have history here. So would you be able to slide that onto the last slide for me? Thank you so much. So recently we just held our fundraising event, Musical Chairs, at Westminster Schools on Sunday, and we're delighted to say we raised over £15,000, which is amazing, and every penny will go towards helping young people like me and Joe were, and like the young people that you see on the screen. We'd also like to acknowledge the hard work of our young leaders. They are photographed on the right hand side. That's Chloe, Nell and Tayshawn. They were the ones who were able to come up on Sunday, and we would just really love to acknowledge how dedicated they've been to OFA and its values, and how hardworking they are. And I saw a little question in the chat about if any young people were trustees. Chloe in that photo, Chloe is 19 and she is a trustee of Orchestras for All. So thank you to anybody who is on our social media or who has donated to us or is going to donate to us, because every penny helps a young person, and without people's previous donations, me and Joe would not be here at all. So we would like to pass off to Ellie. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. My name's Ellie. I am a white female, blondie brown hair, blue eyes, and wearing a sort of pink roll neck jumper. Just to say thank you so much to Joe and Kate. I'm genuinely completely blown away every time I hear you speak. And thank you for being so honest. I feel quite emotional hearing your stories again. I'm definitely the support act today. I just thought, just to finish up, I'll share a little bit more from like a staff member's point of view about our journey with Youth Voice and youth leadership. Sort of, yeah, where we're at with our journey, some of the challenges that we faced, and then some sort of questions to take away that you might be able to think about and then apply to your own organisations. So Joe and Kate have already told you about lots of the opportunities that we create for young people to influence our work, and that's really key, is young people being able to influence what we do and having ownership over that, which they've touched on fantastically well already. Before I do that though, I just want to really stress that there's no perfect way to do youth voice or to achieve youth leadership. We are constantly learning and developing and changing how we do things. We, you know, and I just really want to stress that I'm not here preaching this like perfect way of doing things. I just want to share sort of where we're at with it, and to really stress that we're constantly changing how we do this. So just to sort of expand on the opportunities for young people to influence our work, Joe and Kate already told you about the youth board and ambassadors, which is the role that they have both just completed with us, and also the young leaders. We do actually have 3 trustees who are under 23, and they are all alumni of our programs. So that's now a quarter of our board, which we hope will just continue to go up and up. Just sort of a personal reflection on that. I think that some people, when they're sort of reluctant to invite young people to join the board, it's sort of an assumption that they won't be able to handle it, or that it's like somehow too like complicated or too much of a responsibility. And I just wanted to share that I would 100% challenge that. It's actually, I think, quite patronizing to assume that it's a job that they can't do. Of course, they need training and support to do it, but as we all do, as adults do as well. And I've been actually completely blown away by the impact that they have on at our board meetings and throughout the year as well. So I'm a huge advocate of that. We also sort of have opportunities for young people to be involved in recruitment processes, which is quite important. So sitting on interview panels, writing blogs for us, creating social media campaigns, speaking at conferences and events. And we're just constantly looking to increase the sorts of opportunities that young people can have to influence our work and share their experiences more broadly. I wanted to share one other thing that we do, which sort of ties in really closely with Youth Voices, sort of meeting young people where they're at, is this year we created pen profiles for the young people that we work with before our activity takes place. Just to explain what that is, it's essentially just a description of each young person's support needs, which crucially they write themselves, or they tell us in their own words over the phone. The reason that we do that is because we're working with such a diverse and broad range of young people through our programs, and we really, really need to understand each person as an individual, so that then we can provide the sort of training and support and share information if appropriate with our staff team as well. We've learned so much from that process, and I think the real key to it was the fact that it was hearing from a young person in their own words, not from their adult, not from their parent, from them, and that has really transformed our work this year. We actually now do these with all of our staff members as well, because I think another thing which is sort of where we're at with our journey is the things that we learn through Youth Voice and leadership, and creating opportunities and support for young people, 9 times out of 10 apply to the adults that we're working with as well. And it's, you know, we really want to have a holistic approach across our work on absolutely every level of the organisation. Just showing a couple of challenges, to be completely open and honest about that and our journey. One example was the youth board is chaired by 2 of our trustees who were alumni and under 23. However, our team are involved sort of by invitation and helping with agendas and sharing really key strategic questions that are pressing to us that we want youth board input on. And in the summer, we got an email from the trustee saying, we've scheduled the next youth board meeting for this date. And we just looked at the diary and we're like, oh my gosh, we've got an event that day. We can't be there for that. Oh, they didn't consult us about the date. We haven't been involved in this process. And the initial reaction was, oh, this has gone wrong. But actually it hadn't gone wrong. It was absolutely amazing, because they had been proactive and sorted this on their own. They, you know, they really don't need us, and it showed up to us how much autonomy and ownership they actually have over this process. And it didn't matter that none of us could go. It was much more important that, you know, they were really driving this kind of work. And so just wanted to share that as a reflection, that something that initially seemed bad was actually, you know, really amazing. And similarly, just linking back to sort of safeguarding and over-promising, the youth board had an idea that we should enable young people to be able to communicate in between our projects using an online platform that they'd found and researched and sort of pitched to us. And in the end, we couldn't do it because it was a platform that was only available to 13. There were obviously other safeguarding concerns, but fundamentally it was only a platform available to 13 plus, and we work with 11 to 18. And so we sort of talked about it, and we decided it wasn't like an inclusive way of working if it was a platform that not everyone could access. And that was a challenging conversation because they really wanted to do it, and we felt like we were being the gatekeeper saying no to stuff. But my takeaway to share with you from that was actually, if you can't do something that the youth board want to do or that young people want you to do, you just explain why you can't. And actually being really transparent and open about that is really crucial. And I think it ties in really closely with the kind of over promising that has come up before. I will just move on to finish us up. You've had some fantastic tips from the other panelists today. So instead, I wanted to finish with some questions for you to maybe go away and think about how these relate to your work in your own organisations. So the first one is, how can you increase the opportunities for young people to influence your work? And crucially, will that be a voluntary opportunity or will it be a paid opportunity? We haven't had a chance to go into more detail about how we differentiate the two, but I really encourage you to think about that within your own work. Have you asked young people what they need and want? Most of us actually know what we want, but we're never given the opportunity to actually share that. So how can you create that space within your own organisation? If you receive feedback from young people, do you involve them in that process? Do you give them a variety of ways to communicate and give feedback, and do you act on it? I can put these in the chat afterwards, by the way, because it's a lot to take in. My next one is, don't assume a young person can't do something. If you give them opportunities, you'll be amazed. So really challenge yourself and ask difficult questions. Are you making assumptions about what young people can do? And my final one is actually not a question, but just sort of final thought and to leave you with. Enjoy that this process should be a messy one. It was not meant to be perfect, and there is no right way to do this kind of work. If you're taking chances and being brave and bold, things are likely to go wrong. But ultimately, if you learn from your mistakes and you're constantly moving forwards and have the right sort of intentions with this kind of work, I think it's really important to sort of do it and enjoy that it's a constantly evolving process. So my final thought to leave you with is to enjoy this process being a messy one. And thanks very much. Sorry, we've gone a bit over time.
That's fab. Thank you so much, Ellie, Kate and Joe. Yeah, really great to hear your personal experiences, but also, you know, what Orchestras for All do. And yeah, again, some really interesting themes coming out there around how you approach like the music, but also, you know, the wider organisational place of youth voice. And yeah, I just echo what Ellie's saying, that it's different in every setting, and that's the point, isn't it, when we're doing stuff that's people-centered, whether they're children, young people, older people, whatever. The fact that you know, we're not all the same, so actually, of course, how we approach things is going to be different, and that's the beauty of this. So we've got 10 minutes left now, and I just wondered if anyone's got any questions for any of our panelists, or any thoughts, or whether the panelists have any questions for their colleagues at all. And if not, what is one thing that you're going to take away from what you've heard today to either think about or to see how you could incorporate that into your own work? Does anybody want to volunteer? Go on, B. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much. It's so wonderful to hear three such different and also the same and also just inspiring presentations from everyone. So thank you very much. And I think I'm going to really take away what you said at the end there, Ellie, about it being about allowing space for it to be a messy process. And I've really found that we're working with a new youth board at Sound and Music this year, call them Young Voices. And they're brilliant and they're so engaged and excellent. And this year, in our first year, we feel really like we're chasing our tail with it a bit. So, you know, there's a sort of sense of, oh, that would have been great to do last month. Are they free in 2 weeks' time? I don't know. No, we can't ask for too much, you know. So there's a real sort of sense that, yeah, this really feels like work in progress. And yeah, I feel really heartened listening to your amazing, you, Joe, and you, Kate, your young people come through and know how influential still those opportunities are going to be. So yeah, thanks very much, everyone. Really, really enjoyed that.
Great. And there's also was a question, thank you very much for that, B, from Julia, which you mentioned you answered a couple when you were speaking, but what training does your youth board get?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So our youth board is supported by two of our trustees who are also alumni and a couple of years older. I don't know if Kate or Joe, you want to sort of come in with your own experiences here. Kate, you've come off mute, so
yeah. So a lot of training that we get in regards from moving to kind of a position as a young person into kind of like progressing into staff is they're really good about making sure that you're up to date on your safeguarding. And safeguarding that we did was through Educare, so it was quite detailed and it was online. Enhanced DBS checks as well are so important to have, so it's really good practice that we do them. For example, I'm not from England, however I still have a DBS check, which is like, it's so important to have. You know, a lot of organizations I think would have just been like, okay, you're not from here, you don't need one, whereas Orchestras for All is like, yeah, you need one. We've also done loads of internal training as well as staff in regard to different behavioral or medical needs that people have. So whether someone's dyslexic, how can you make music more inclusive for people with dyslexia? And it's actually helped me, that training, because my cousin, she's just learned how to play a trumpet like me. I'm very influential and she's dyslexic, so it's helping me to, you know, make her music making more inclusive. We get a lot of training around mental health as well. So the main focus of Orchestras for All at the moment has been like safeguarding and well-being. You know, we have a well-being team and we have like a well-being room with like a lot of sensory stuff. So it's really ongoing, and to be honest, a lot of the well-being stuff is trial and error. If our young people say that something works for them, we try to work for them as best possible. For example, we have our own running club thanks to what a young person likes. So I think that answers your question, please.
Fab, thank you very much, Kate and Ellie. Yeah, it's really just an observation. I was chatting to some people that we're doing some evaluation for, which is not the people in this room today, but others who were doing an inclusive program. And one of the things that came up was around, you know, and it sounds like all three of you are doing this in your work around how you're making or you're supporting your tutors, teachers, musicians to be inclusive in their music making approach, but also as looking at the whole person and being inclusive of different needs and having awareness of this type of thing, and challenging our perceptions and bias about all of that. And yeah, I think it's really interesting that it's moving, things are developing to become more holistic, which is a great word that you used earlier, Joe. So it's the musical as well as the personal, social aspects, which is fab. And yeah, I think that's kind of all the questions we've got. Sarah's asked about, are the youth board and young trustees all alumni, or do you welcome young people from outside of orchestras for all? So, Ellie has put in the chat, they are alumni for you, Sarah. But yeah, well, I think if nobody's got any other burning questions or thoughts or comments, that we can wrap up there. But if you do think of anything, I'm sure that we can facilitate conversations outside of this space. So I'd just like to say a massive thank you to all of our speakers, so to Doug, Georgina, Karen, Ellie, Kate and Joe, also to Sarah and the team at NIMAS for putting on the event and for inviting us to host and hear about all of the amazing work you're doing. And yeah, I'm really interested to follow up with you all after and see, have a deeper discussion about this, and hear about the toolkit that you're developing at Know-Yo and all that type of thing. It's very exciting. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone, and I hope you have a lovely evening.